find something to do that you love, the subject matter that you're passionate about. In my case, it was mountain guiding, and it was, I loved climbing, I loved skiing, and being a guide enabled me to go those places. And over time, it enabled me to go all kinds of places.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Mastrius for this sneak peek with artist and mentor, Gordon Wiltsie. We'll be discussing how to use pictures to tell stories and create art. At Mastrius, you get personal feedback, teaching, advice, and support from a master artist of your choice, so you can reach your goals in your style at your pace. I'm your host, Marcia Korsfeld, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce Mastrius mentor, Gordon Wiltsie. Gordon is a renowned storyteller, artist, and explorer who has conceived and documented scores of expeditions to some of the world's remotest locations, including previously unexplored wilderness regions of Antarctica, the Arctic, the Himalaya, Central Asia, and South America. The Explorers Club has cited him as one of the leading expedition photographers of his generation, and for more than 45 years, his pictures in magazines, ranging from the original Mountain Gazette, the earliest issues of Outside, and later numerous features for National Geographic, have helped to inspire the modern outdoor lifestyle and appreciation for protecting our planet's special places and peoples. Gordon strives for technical excellence, whether indoors or out, and has developed a keen eye for architecture, events, and advertising for a broad variety of clients. He's a captivating speaker and a patient and gifted teacher who loves sharing his experience with aspiring and emerging photographers. Gordon's pictures have appeared in hundreds of publications, postcards, calendars, and posters, and he is well known for his assignment photography for outdoor companies like the North Face, Patagonia, and Nike, as well as nonprofits such as the American Himalaya Foundation, American Prairie Reserve, Sierra Club, and Greater Yellowstone Coalition. He has photographed several books and is the author of To the Ends of the Earth, The Adventures of an Expedition Photographer. Gordon, welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Enjoying the video? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when new Mastrius videos are added.
Thanks, Marcia. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited about my upcoming group. I love teaching, and I love meeting everybody involved, and think it'll be an exciting journey forward for all of us as we become friends and get to know photography a little better.
Absolutely. I know I could have spent, before we started the recording here, we were chatting, and I could have easily just kept chatting to you for hours with the knowledge you have. So I'm really excited for you to share with us what can be expected from some of your mastery sessions.
Well, thanks. Basically, I want to establish a discussion group. I will facilitate it and lead the discussion, but I want to get into the art of storytelling, using like one picture to tell a story or 10 pictures to tell a story, and how to make them as artistic as we can and cohesive. And I really I'm very strong on the fundamentals of photography, the f-stop, how they all interrelate, and I use a lot of artificial light. It doesn't appear that way. And I want to teach you all kinds of tricks, and I actually learn as much from you as I probably teach you over the time. But it'll be a mix of instruction, critique, and are talking about our shared mutual love of photography. I usually start the sessions with a brief discussion, and we go through, high points of our week or the month before, what excited us, any pictures that we took that were great. And then we'll move on into a critique, which will be which I do in Lightroom. And Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop come together in a package that you can rent for $20 a month. And I strongly encourage you to do that, because those are tools that enable you to, there are competing tools, but these are the ones I know, and they're the most universal. What I will teach in Lightroom, you can do in other programs, but you just have to adapt it, because I'll be talking about that one. But
So if I had no experience with Lightroom or Photoshop at all, you will guide us through that as
I
well?
will guide you through that.
Excellent. Okay, because I know some of those programs can be so overwhelming when you're
Photoshop is very difficult. We won't do much in Photoshop. Lightroom is much more basic and it deals with brightness and contrast and cropping. And it's also a way of sorting things, which I probably won't get into, or I will on some session. I'll just do a little edit of my own work and show how you can rate stars and make comments and add captions. I mean, it's a very powerful program, but we'll be using it in simple ways that are really easy to understand and you can do yourself. I'll give you a peek here. We'll start off and just everybody's work will be uploaded into this here. And so here's, months worth of photography from everyone. And I'll go through these one at a time, pretty much sticking with one photographer at a time so we don't get confused and we kind of go through. But we'll look at a picture, say, and this one is a picture I loved, but it started off very differently. And so we go up here to the top and it has a develop mode. And this is the way it first came in. And,
big difference.
and so what I want to do is, I love this picture. I mean, it's got, the eye is so sharp and all of the feathers. You really did a nice job on this person who took it. But let's, I wish the camera had been pointed more to the right when it was shot, but we can make up for that by cropping. See this tool over here? This is called the crop symbol. You put that there and it puts some lines on the picture. Well, let's try and get rid of some of the extraneous detail on the side and maybe this hot, distracting footing on the bottom. And we've homed in, we're not now more at the essence of the picture. We also could have done it a vertical. Why not try that? A magazine cover more like.
Wow. It's amazing just what composition can do for an already beautiful photograph, but it just makes it that much more.
It really brings out a lot. And once we've composed it here in Lightroom, there are a variety of other things we can do. We can adjust the exposure, the contrast, adjust the highlights, which only does the darker parts of the lighter parts of the picture. We can adjust the shadows, brighten it up, darken that. We can adjust the vibrance and make it all kinds of tools, and there are more that we can get into, but these are the basics we'll be working with each time. This is how it ended up. This is how it started. I love this, the liquid feel of this. You really did a nice job of conveying it. I didn't understand when I first looked at it that there was a hood ornament on a car. And I realized that, there's a bunch of busy stuff. Our eyes are drawn to all these hot spots out here where this is where we want our eye to go. How about taking it down? Let's get rid of that busyness, maybe even crop out the top of the bow. And now you see the car wheel here, and we're down more to the essence of it. And as before, we can adjust the highlights and take them down. I think this is pretty good as is. There's not much else I would do to this picture. But let's take a look at the next one here. Wow, this is wonderful.
Lots of colors.
Lots of colors. I only modified it. Here was the original. And, this was very distracting to me. And here on the side. So I'm going to bring it in and see these flowers just kind of going off the edge. If we just bring it in a little bit here, bring up the bottom, and maybe. Now your eye goes to her much more quickly. And there are hot spots in here that we can take down a little bit. See, now we can see detail in here.
Yeah.
We bring the shadows up, maybe not much. And we can keep proceeding like that. And we'll go through each of the pictures here one by one. Some will take more work than others. We'll talk more, but I want to give everybody a chance to ask questions. And basically, when we present it, I'll start off by why did you take the picture? What was it that inspired you? And how successful, then we'll look at it and how successful you were. I love this part of the program, and we all learn a lot, and we get to know each other better, and we get to see what people care about, which is very exciting to me.
Yeah, it is. You can learn so much from the people that are in your group, as well as your mentor.
Yes,
That's my
and
experience.
sometimes they have, I'm not the end all and be all in something, and I really want. I didn't show this in my demo, but I really want people to interject and say, yeah, I'd agree, or I don't agree, or why don't you do it this way? And I've had to go, oh wow, yeah, that would make it a lot better. So it's to encourage, it's to help you gain confidence at the same time that you realize how you can improve things, which is very powerful. And then when we come to the end of that, we'll talk a little bit more back and forth. We'll have a facilitator who will help guide the conversation. And at that point, I usually get into a little bit of instruction. Anyway, I want to, everybody you go in a scene and everybody's pointing their camera in different directions. They have all kinds of different cameras and different kinds of settings. And, I'm not a genius at how every camera works at all. I have mine and I figured it out. And I did most of my photography on film and shot in manual. But I want to just look, there are sort of universal principles that add up to a good photograph. And, I won't just read these, but you want to figure out your correct f-stop and shutter speed and ISO, which is the speed of the sensor, and then use those to achieve the sharpness and focus that you want. Choose an effective lens. Different lenses will see the same, well, obviously, but some pictures are best taken with a telephoto. We'll talk about that. How to find and create, if necessary, interesting light that brings the subject alive. Each one of these is going to be a session. How to frame a compelling composition. Where do you put the objects in the frame? Then capturing I'll be doing a lot about storytelling, capturing the perfect moment. There is sometimes in action photography, it's a billionth of a second, or not that quick. In people photography, it can be a snap, or it can mean waiting around for hours for the right spotlight to light up a bristlecone pine or something. And then in the end, either with one image or 10, I want to convey a message and tell a story. For now, in the first session, I'm going to focus pretty much on how to get the right amount of light onto your film or your sensor. Excuse me for my film references, but basically a light meter is not a genius. It's basically trying to figure out in various different algorithms how to get a tone of darkness. It's about like that. We have all these shades of gray. Ansel Adams split them into 10 zones. This would be like a zone 9, and this would be a zone 1. I think that's the way they go. And so it's averaging out, and you want to be in command of that. And the commands come down to 3 basic settings that I really want in the course of this for you to be absolutely familiar with them. I'm showing this on an old film camera because they're easier to see rather than the electronic displays that are inside your viewfinder. But the 3 keys that come together are your shutter speed, how long the lens stays open, the ISO, which is how sensitive, how quickly your sensor can gain light. And the brilliance of digital photography is you can change it for every picture. When in film, you had to shoot it the whole roll that way. because the ISO was in the film. It was Kodachrome 64 ISO or Fujichrome 25, and the whole roll was that way. Now, this picture I want to do at ISO 100 because it's really bright, or I want to shoot it at 1600. Well, and I got that wrong. 100 would be average. I want to do 1600 because I'm indoors, and so we can adjust it. And then the final thing is the f-stop, and f22 is very narrow. F2, it's actually a fraction, so f22 is less light than f2.8. But it's basically getting a good exposure is like filling a glass of water. You can either do it very slowly, and it takes a fair amount of time to do that, which is the equivalent of a very narrow f22, a narrow opening through your lens. Or you can fill it up, gushing water, and just top off that glass in it really quickly. And that's the equivalent of a wide open lens like this. And so anytime you come up, your light meter will tell you the right amount of light, but all of these are correct. One f-stop is equivalent to doubling the amount of light that comes on it. Is that clear to everybody? Might stop here and ask some questions, but 1/15 is obviously twice as much light as 1/30. 1/60 is twice as much light. And these f-stops, 32, 22, 16, 11, 8, 5, 6, and 4, each one of these is double or half the amount of light. F32 is half the amount of light. So here we have twice the amount of light as here, half the opening, same amount of light. Well,
So
it
you could
makes
almost,
yes?
so could you think of it as, so say I was going to take a picture of the Northern Lights as opposed to taking a picture of an athlete running or hitting baseball.
If you want to take the Northern Lights, you're going to take a long exposure, and you're going to have very at like probably 2.8, it might be 30 seconds.
Yes.
Whereas and slower shutter speeds are either for very low light or for high depth of field, which I'm going to talk about in just a bit. Depth of field is really critical in a picture. So you get to this extreme, it's for depth of field, and there's a big possibility of motion blur. This is kind of a good all-around setting. It used to be, there was a saying F11 and B there for the adventure photography. I don't subscribe to that, but this is kind of a good all-around setting. And here oops. At this end, this is the action stopping, thousandth of a second. You have very low field of view, and there is now very little possibility of motion blur. And here, this is an example of depth of field, and it's very important to think about. Your camera doesn't see this as you're looking through it. It sees it sees most things in focus. And no, it doesn't show you depth of field, but this is a low depth of field, and see how only this is sharp, all of this is blurred, all of this is blurred. It's very arty and gives, and this would be equivalent to a wide open aperture. But if I shot it at a very narrow aperture, all of a sudden I get all of this in focus. And maybe this might be good for a textbook where we're talking about this kind of moss and this kind of moss over here, and we see it all. But as an artwork, I don't think it works as well as this one.
No, it tells a totally different story, doesn't it?
Yeah, and but like the classic Ansel Adams will have everything, the bush in front and the mountains in the background, and I use that a lot. But it's me making the choice that I'm going to put it on a tripod, I'm going to take it at slow speed, versus the guy's jumping off a cliff and I want to get him exactly the perfect moment.
Yeah.
And here's another example of that. F22, you got everything in the frame that's sharp. And on the other side, we have, they're different strokes. if I was doing a flower guidebook, I'd use this one, but if I was just using it as a piece of art, see this F4, F22. And then ISO, I mentioned that at the beginning, the film speed, the sensor speed. A low number means that it gathers light slowly. It can gather more information in a shorter period of time, in a longer period of time. And here, at ISO 6400, it's gathering light much more quickly and doesn't get as much information onto it. So you can see that this gets really grainy and blown out and a lot of what we call noise on it. Whereas this one's pretty sharp and it makes a big difference. And sometimes I use the high ISO because I like the grain, but usually I prefer the lowest that I can possibly get onto my camera. Does
Well, and I guess
everybody
too, if you had-
understand that? Any questions?
Yeah, well, I guess, so say you had the same flower and you had a hummingbird coming to it.
Oh, I mean, there's the question. I put it on 1,000th of a second immediately. I wouldn't worry about depth of field. I'd get out of its way and just stay focused on it. You're going to have no depth of field. So focus on the hummingbird's eye if you can, or if you have autofocus, get the sensor right there. So, and this leads us to the 4 basic settings that we have on almost every digital camera. The one I did not put here is manual, which is how I often shoot. Most people don't choose to do that. And so generally they're A for aperture priority, S for shutter priority, and P for program. Well, I use aperture priority when depth of field is important and I want to control it. I set the I've set it an F22 to get a lot of depth of field. I set it at 2.8 to really limit my depth of field. And that's my choice when I'm shooting aperture priority. It may require a tripod and it doesn't compensate. It's a hard choice for action. When I'm shooting action, I shoot shutter priority and it can freeze the guy jumping off the cliff, or it can bring out a blur and create a sense of motion that way, but it makes depth of field calculations harder. You're going to have less depth of field usually. And then there's program mode, the good old standby, which I forbid for this class. It enables the camera to just make its own decisions about f-stop, shutter speed, and ISO, and you're not making the decisions, it's making the decisions, and just a dumb machine. It's not capable of creating art. So those are the basics that I hope everybody learns how to use and master it. And I want this to become second nature. So as you go see a picture, you know which one of these settings to choose. And so this kind of information, I'll talk probably 20, 30 minutes about that. And then we'll go back for a Q&A session at the end. And again, getting to know each other, we can go back and review what we've covered before. But I'm excited about it. I really want to see everyone's pictures. I hope you'll join us in the group. And I think we'll all have a great discovery session together over the time.
No, that's
So I hope you can join us.
No, it's for some of your slides there, I mean, because I'm guilty of it. I use the program mode in my camera. I'll admit it sometimes, but I think it is just that getting some knowledge and instruction from someone like yourself of, yes, what does that S mode, what does that A mode, what can I do with this piece of equipment that I have that I'm using 10% of what I could be using.
Yes, and the more you know, the more my dream of this would be people would come out of it able to shoot in manual. And everybody can do that, but you can use your automatic settings to see what you would set it at a manual, especially when you start dealing with artificial light and trying to show the inside of a room and the outside of a window. You do have to get into that kind of thing. We won't really do that much of it, but we will talk about adding light.
Excellent. And like you showed us the depth of field with the little mushroom there, how you really can tell a story so much more effectively by doing those types of manipulation with your camera than if you just everything's the same. So that's great.
Yeah, I just want to put people in control of their cameras so that they can be more expressive and get what you want out of a picture rather than what you chance to get.
Excellent. Well, Gordon, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. And before we go, I do have one question I want to ask you. So what's one piece of advice or encouragement that you would give an artist starting out that you wish you had heard?
Well, one piece of advice that I did hear was find something to do that you love, the subject matter that you're passionate about. In my case, it was mountain guiding, and it was, I loved climbing, I loved skiing, and being a guide enabled me to go those places. And over time, it enabled me to go all kinds of places, the Himalaya, the Antarctic. I couldn't afford to go there, but I could get paid $30 a day, like it's nothing, uh, to go to Nepal, where very few people had been at that time, and get pictures. And in the end, the payoff is the pictures, not the $30 a day. But by being somebody who is capable of keeping other people alive in the mountains or in the wilderness or the polar regions or whatever, I got to go there and create the art. But it could be you're interested in forestry, you're interested in, you love birds, you love like the National Geographic bug photographer is an entomologist and a professor of entomology. They really know your subject matter. And so if you're passionate about a subject, if you're passionate about a subject, that's what you photograph.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that. And
Thank you,
thanks
Marcia.
everyone for watching. If you'd like to learn more about Mastrius, check us out at mastrius.com. Everything we do is live, interactive, and online, so you can get your questions answered in real time and learn exactly what you need to reach your goals, whatever they are. I'm a member at Mastrius, and I absolutely love it. I'm learning and growing my skills fast, and the community is extremely supportive and welcoming. I hope you'll join us. Find out more at mastrius.com.